Hey everybody, I hope this is reaching you okay. This is our first time using Zoom to broadcast live. This is my old buddy, Isaac Shapiro. We lived together back in India with our mutual teacher, Punjaji, Papaji, and now here we are, just a couple of years older, with our gray beards, reflecting upon times past. So welcome, Isaac.
Thanks so much, Arjuna.
Lovely to see
A
you.
real deep pleasure to get to spend a few moments together.
Yummy, yummy, yummy. So here we are. We got 3 people watching. Hooray! We're famous. Everything has to start somewhere. So I put a little post yesterday that I'd like to reflect on with you today about so something's happened for us. Is we got this virus wherever it came from. This virus started up, and then the virus started circulating, and which then caused everybody to have to stay home. But then something else started happening, which was another virus on top of the first virus. The first virus was called COVID-19. The second virus is called fear, right? And of course, when everybody is sitting at home, worried about the first virus, they're suffering from the second virus of fear. And this fear, of course, this fear coupled with not knowing who to believe, because at least in America where I live, the government has been taken over by people who are not very fond of the truth, and that's just. And then you've got the media, which they're all whatever. You've got the media, which is all owned by corporations. You've got corporations, so you just go crazy not knowing who to listen to, and this gives rise to, out of the feeling I can't trust anybody or can't trust any of these narratives, it gives rise to the attempt to fill the gap with some narrative, and this, of course, gives rise to a lot of conjecture and possibilities. Maybe it's this, maybe it's that, and some of it gets a little out of control. So I was pleading with people yesterday, like, if you want to investigate these things, do it in a credible way, but please don't make shit up, because it scares the shit out of everybody when we start thinking we're being controlled by malicious hamsters on the Pleiades who are in league with Bill Gates and a team of bats, in something. So anyway, let's just jive a little bit on that and talk about the way that we attempt to fill the vacuum of meaning from an authority with meaning that we create ourselves.
Yeah, just for fun, I looked up the word conspiracy, and it says a secret plan by a group of people to do something unlawful or harmful.
Right.
Now, the difficulty is that we know that there are groups like that.
Yeah.
And you mentioned some of them. And so, but the difficulty is then it's like, I don't know if we'll ever really know what the secret plan is and who's all involved, because I think actually there's many layers to that. And once you start going down that rabbit hole, man, there's a lot of different ideas around it and facts. But again, it's how to research that. I mean, I think you have to be some kind of superhuman to get in touch with some of the shit that's going down and not get afraid.
Yeah.
Because there's a pretty gnarly stuff happening.
Yeah.
And so, it's like, to me, I really understood your post, and the feedback that I gave you was that I'm one of the people that sometimes posts things that I thought were researched, but then people point out that it wasn't properly researched. And, I think people are doing their best, but, somehow where it went in me is like, is this conspiracy? Is this fact? And just like really questioning and then just seeing what happens in relational to this big not knowing that's going on. And yet at the same time, if we do know, is there some action that we can take? Is there some, it's like, it's a big conversation. Yeah.
So I want to come back to something you said, brother, because you gave a definition of conspiracy, to conspire, and you said a concerted, I don't remember, but a concerted plot by a group of people to do something malevolent or harmful, right?
Yeah.
So it's the malevolent or harmful I want to just focus on for a moment, and hear me out for a sec, okay? Because
Yeah, sure.
I think you and I, we have both visited Israel. Is that correct? Yeah. And if it's not Israel, it's here, there, or everywhere. So what tends to happen, what I've noticed is if you go to Israel, if something bad's going on and it's done by Israeli people, by Jewish people, the Jewish people will say, well, yeah, that happened, but it was probably for good intention. If something,
Okay, let's make a distinction between Jewish and Israeli, because there is a big distinction.
Yeah, Jewish. I'm saying Jewish. Yeah.
No,
Whereas,
but Jewish is a religion.
yeah,
Israel is a state, and there's
I
quite
know,
a
but there are
difference.
Palestinians who are also Israeli citizens. That's why I'm making the distinction, you see.
Okay.
Yeah. So on the other hand, if there is something bad going on and it appears to be done by Arabic Israeli people, then it will appear to be malevolent. And we can do that any way we want. Like in America, if something bad is happening and it seems to be done by the Republicans, the Democrats will say it was malevolent. If the same thing is being done by Democrats, it's probably for good reason. And we could duplicate that again and again and again. So this, to me, it points to the phenomenon, and hear me out here because I've got a little thread. It points to the phenomenon that we could call othering, right? And othering means that people you don't know, right? People you don't know. I'm just saying, it looks like we've lost our thread here. Let me just a minute. People that you don't know, or people that appear to be part of a group that's not you, we tend to other them and suspect them of dubious, bad motives, right? So, and I'm just going to give you a really quick illustration of this. Years ago, before I shifted to the people I work with, I was, really in the alternative world. And the most evil thing that I could think of on the planet was Monsanto, right? Monsanto was like as evil gets, right? They're doing all this terrible stuff. They're poisoning us, blah, blah, blah. So I just got it in my head, like, if I wanted to personify Satan on the planet, it would be Monsanto, right? But then I got into doing more kind of executive coaching and professional coaching. And I taught at a retreat for the Harvard Law School annual retreat. So I went there, and at the retreat were two Swiss guys from Monsanto. They were lawyers, from Monsanto, Swiss guys. But I didn't know they were from Monsanto. So I sat down. It was actually after dinner. We were in the bar having a little fireside chat. They had a nice fireplace, having a chat. And they said, oh, yes, my children, you're from Switzerland. I can't do the accent very good, but I'm from Switzerland. My children are at the Waldorf school, and, and my wife, and, we were so cozy, so cozy. They seem so sweet. They love their kids. Oh, my God, I love these people. What do you do for a living? I work for Monsanto. Oh, my God. Now, suddenly, this sweet, cozy Swiss guy works for the devil, But then I interrogated them a little more, and I realized they had perfectly good justifications in their mind for why they were doing what they were doing. They saw it as good because it was giving farmers better. They had an argument for it. And what I saw, the problem was not that they were evil, but they had a limited view of the impact of their actions. And since then, I've also conducted workshops where I had the governors for two of the states in the US in my workshop. They were both hardcore Republicans, right? I had to do a whole reframe of what a hardcore Republican is all about, because I realized they're not evil. They've just got different values that I hadn't considered. So I'm just wondering, that it seems to me that when there's a group that you other in your mind, you say, oh, they're different me, you other them, you tend to attribute to them malevolent motives that may be a misunderstanding. It may be that you just don't know how they think. And if that's the case, the reason I'm presenting this is when we think about Bill Gates, Bill Gates has been really the target of these conspiracy things lately. If you think about Bill Gates, maybe he's just a nerdy guy who's doing his best with a limited understanding. Maybe he's not a guy into mass genocide. We don't know that. And et cetera, et cetera. So my concern, what I see is clearly happening in the world, no doubt, is we tend to other people, put them into another camp, and then attribute malevolence to them. But we don't. Once you get to know those people, your whole view may change. maybe the problem is malevolence rather than conspiracy. What do you think about that?
So, you know, I grew up in South Africa, which gives a different flavor. You know, I grew up in a country where the people that were running, I would say, some of the most brutal programs, similar to what happened in Nazi Germany, killing, raping, torturing, all of that stuff. They really were doing it from the perspective that they were trying to keep their culture alive, and it justified any means. And I'm sure, you know, like the same thing with the Nazis or any of, or Mao Zedong. I mean, and, you know, we've watched, our history is like Romans invading, and then, you know, like killing off all the men, taking the women and the kids, and then leaving behind everyone heavily taxed to, you know, to build better roads and make the world more Roman. And so we can see that there's like a way that people function that's, in a way you could say, maybe not evil, maybe it's just, you know, it's following orders, or a certain mentality that doesn't quite, it's not in touch or in tune with its impact. So are there people that are actually malevolent, that, you know, it's like, what about the people that fund both sides of a war, or that you read that book, Confessions of an Economic Hitman?
I know John Perkins really well. He's a good friend.
Where they go into a country and they turn that country into slaves without, do we call that? I mean, I'm sure, you know, the people that are involved must have some justification for what they're doing.
Yeah.
But, you know, is it conspiratorial? Absolutely, by the definition of the word conspiracy.
Yeah. I think my question is, Isaac, is this an attribute of an evil them, or is this, unfortunately, an attribute of the unexamined human nature? And in fact, if we really strip it down and get really honest, you and I, in our little spiritual superiority bubble, can we find those same attributes in ourselves? In other words, is this
something in human consciousness?
Exactly. So you see, then we can see the problem is in human nature, not in them. It's in us. And then we can actually do something about it, you know, instead of
we can do something, we can do something in us, you know, but it's the same thing, like, you know, as a society, we have a system that some people, you know, they're working 2 jobs. The kids only have access to the 7-Eleven down the store, and they can get Twinkies and Coke.
Yeah.
And, you know, they hang around with other people in gangs, and then they, you know, drift into whatever they drift into. And we can then point the finger at them, or we can look, how are we participating as a society? So I think it's a much bigger question.
Yeah.
And then for me, the question comes, how do you invite? Because, you know, I'll tell you a story, which I find really interesting.
Tell me a story, brother.
I hold retreats in South Africa. And so I went to this retreat center, and there's this very Afrikaans man there, and he's really nice. I mean, I liked him. And turns out that he used to be a major in Bureau of State Security, which was like the South African SS. So he had been involved in some pretty, you know, like we would say, terrible things. But anyway, when Mandela got out of prison, he asked for this guy to be head of his security detail. Typical Mandela. Anyway, this guy at first refused, because he went from one day fighting the ANC to the next day being asked.
Crazy. All right.
Anyway, but at one point he said, I don't know what you, because the meetings were at another building quite far away from the main building. He said, I don't know what you're doing down there, but I feel really moved. Could I come and say goodbye to everyone at the end of your retreat? I said, with pleasure. He came down there, and when it was his turn to speak, he started crying.
Yeah.
And he said, you know, I haven't cried in over 40 years.
Oh, wow. It's a
And
great story, man.
yeah, so, you know, it's or the story of Milarepa, who was a murderer, and then in the meeting with Buddha turned around. So,
Yeah.
you know, I hear your invitation. It's like, yes, of course. I see there's people in Monsanto, people that are ignorant. I am no ignorance in me, and where my, you know, that plays in me. And so I hear your invitation. How do we meet ourselves in that, and also then invite where we see it happening somewhere, invite it without making it, pointing the finger and just like, wow, I see you doing the best you can. And I know that shaming and making wrong is for sure only going to evoke justification and rationalization.
Beautiful.
So, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's, yeah. It seems to me, you know, that it's, what are you laughing?
I love this conversation.
Yeah, man. It feels to me, what I know about my life, you know, at the age now of looking back at the age of 97, it's it's really easy and comfortable to find villains out there, and then to identify with being the righteous victim. It's really hard to see that the villainous qualities I'm pointing my finger at are all to be found within me. And really, the conflict in the world is also a conflict within my own
consciousness.
Consciousness. And I wanted to ask you, I can't remember, did I send you my new book yet, which is not yet published, called Forefathers? Because I wanted to, can I just tell you a moment about that? And, you know, whoever else is listening will be able to hear it too. So I wrote this book, and by the way, I'll just post chapter 1 into the chat below, so you can have it if you want it. Yeah, so I chose to write this as a novel just because this is so multifaceted. I needed to make it fiction in order for it to play itself out, you know. So this novel, it's in 4 parts. It starts in British India, where which is highly oppressive and colonial, and it weaves its way through 4 scenarios until we get to the present day. We end up with a guy whose great grandfather was responsible for a massacre in India under the British, but he's now married to an Indian woman with a half Indian son, right? So which means within him, like his genetic inheritance is brutality and the oppressor. And he's doing a history PhD at a university. So he's now researching the impact without knowing it was his great grandfather. We find that out in the novel. So he's got this thing within him. And what I'm really trying to explore is there is no them. You know, there's no them doing anything to us. There is no them that we're suffering from. The problem is something inherent within all of us to create these hierarchies of power. And as far as I can see, we all do it. You know, all of us have the tendency to put other people below us, and then to feel oppressed by other people. And we do it really subtly, you know, because you and I, we both have a background as being spiritual teachers. Man, oh man, it's possible to use that benevolent role as a spiritual teacher to subtly have power over other people, you know. And you have to watch like shit, you know, to be aware of that. The only way that I've found is to tell the truth about it, and to tell the truth that all of us have ways that we love to feel powerful over others. We all of us have ways that we give our power away to others. And it's so deeply ingrained into our DNA that the only thing we can do is tell the truth about it. But we don't really get anywhere when we project the role of the oppressor or the oppressed onto the outside world. We cease to realize where the problem really resides.
So I 100% agree. That what I would like to add to it is, you know, I've seen just on even a way lesser level, all of us seem to have automatic unconscious patterns that cause difficulty not only for ourselves, but everyone around it, especially the people closest to us.
Yeah.
So what I've noticed in that is that in that also there's a tendency to project that they're responsible. And of course, when we project that they're responsible for our unhappiness, we've put our happiness into their hands.
Yeah.
But so as I explored that, I would look to see, look, is the upset with them an upset with them, or is it an upset with an unconscious pattern playing in them?
Yeah.
And I could see it was always that the upset was with an unconscious pattern playing in them.
Right.
And when I looked at the function of the upset, it was to try and to get them to see the error of their ways.
Right. Which is power, which is a subtle way of having power over somebody, right?
Exactly. And
Yeah.
but the thing is, then the question, does that upset actually work? Has anyone had any good luck with that?
Right.
That strategy? And I could see, then I looked deep and I thought, is the upset in me? Is it me that's upset, or is it an unconscious pattern in me that's upset?
Yeah,
and
right.
I could see it's an unconscious pattern upset with an unconscious pattern.
Right. So, you know what I'm seeing, just
Yeah.
as you and I have this conversation, and where we are together looking at the phenomenon of power dynamics, in our looking at it, we are not in a power dynamic, you know, right? In the observing, and that's, to me, you know, that's the way, that is evolution. That is where we can evolve as a species, is in our mutual recognition of the way that we all oppress and get oppressed. In that recognition, we are one.
Yeah.
In the recognition, there is oneness, but that requires telling the truth, not attributing blame. That requires self-reflection.
Exactly, and recognizing that it's not the person, that it's something unconscious in the person.
Right. Yeah.
Because as soon as we think that they have, look, if it's an automatic unconscious pattern,
yeah,
how much choice is there?
Yeah, yeah.
And who's doing it?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So to me, then it seems like, you know, somehow this great intelligence that's manifesting in all these different forms has to be what's doing it.
Yeah.
And then as we, you know, what's our option is just to inquire into it like we're doing.
Like we're doing.
And then, and then in that inquiry, seeing, right, there is no blame. There is, for sure, is there accountability if, you know, if somehow an unconscious pattern plays in me and it causes difficulty for someone or kills someone. You know, most murders happen within intimate relating.
Most murders happen within what?
Intimate relationships.
Within relationship, yeah.
Intimate relationships.
Intimate relationships, yeah.
Yeah.
I know, I think you almost killed me a couple of times, right? I seem to remember
you got a wicked sense of humor.
I seem to remember living in that house with you in India, and you were running around waving a knife one point.
You spread such rumors, my man.
It's a conspiracy theory. You know, it's funny because, you know, in that moment I was telling you about Monsanto, you know, and you probably know James O'D. Do you know James O'D, who used to be the president of the Institute for Noetic? No, not it was.
I've heard his name. Yeah, I've heard his
IONS,
name.
the Institute for Noetic Science. So I interviewed James O'D for that book, Translucent Revolution, that came out 20 years ago or 15 years ago. And he was telling me about this project he did, which is really great, where he got together in the Northeast somewhere, like around Massachusetts. He got together a group of expectant mothers, right? They were pregnant mothers, some of whom were really hardcore Republicans, like who wanted to kind of jail Democrats, and half of them were hardcore Democrats. And they came together and met during their pregnancy, and then they all had their babies, right? That was the end of that ideological war, right? And he duplicated the same again and again, where he brought these people together, but brought them together in another context, and their ideologies disappeared. Now, our mutual friend Bharat Mitra is involved in a project in Tel Aviv, which I think is now already happening in Jerusalem as well, which is a kindergarten. It's a kindergarten called Human First, right? And this kindergarten, the rules of the kindergarten are it has to have the same demographics as the population of Tel Aviv. So the same proportion of Jewish to Arab to Christian to whatever, that has to be represented in the kindergarten and the teachers, right? So I went there and I could actually post a video. I went there, and you've got all these little kids. Of course, they don't know if they're Arab or Jewish. They don't care, you know.
Of
but
course.
but they've got one woman there with the whole Habib and everything, you know, the whole, what's it called, that black thing around, you know. And then they've got a Jewish one. They're all there, and no one cares. And then those kids, those 3 or 4 year old kids, have to educate their parents to get over their bullshit. You see, the kids have to educate the parents. Give it up already, right? So anyway, there's lots of experiments like that. And I often think when I read these theories, and they go on fucking forever on my Facebook feed. It's like endless theories about Bill Gates. I feel like, Jesus Christ, could you please go have dinner with Bill Gates before you write anything here, and just really make sure that this is not a fantasy? I mean, maybe Bill Gates is an evil hamster in a, you know, whatever, maybe. But maybe Bill Gates is just a computer nerd and you're projecting all over him. We don't know that. I mean, I'm open to the possibility that Bill Gates might be the arch enemy, but would you please, you know,
for me, I wouldn't
let me just
even
say one more thing. Let me just say one more thing, because the
Mm.
reason I'm saying this, I'm not just being obtuse. I've never met Bill Gates, right? But I have a client, a coaching client, who is really senior in the infectious disease world. Like he's a consultant with the WHO, the CDC, blah, 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 blah. He has met Bill Gates, you know, and has hung out with him. And, you know, I actually, when I saw all these things, I kind of said to him, you know, there's all this stuff. He just laughed. He said, you can't imagine how wild. It's just like so weird that anyone would think that, because it's like, it's just a nerdy guy, you know, who married a philanthropic wife, and they're doing their best in their own limited way, you know. But it feels to me like all this kind of hatred, it builds up in the absence of knowing people well. It builds up in the absence of human connection. You know, we project when we don't know people personally.
So I'd like to bring into this inquiry, you know, we see an organization like Monsanto that has, if we speak to, I mean, I've had conversations with scientists that work for Monsanto.
You have, right?
And I can, yeah, for sure. And I can see that they absolutely believe that Monsanto is trying to feed the world and do good.
Right.
But there is such a blind spot.
Yeah.
In really looking at what, you know, like, wow, you know, Monsanto spraying near the school and kids are getting sick, and we can see that this is actually making the kids sick.
Right.
And they can't hear it. It's so amazing.
Right.
And so, you know, so then how do we deal with that? You know, like maybe it's a nerdy guy who's amassed a fortune, and in his nerdiness and in wherever there's, you know, someone who's got blind spots, like all of us, in that, like that's in that position of power. Yeah. Even with good, how much really terrible stuff happens with good intentions.
Right. How much terrible stuff do you and I cause with good intentions, right?
I asked that question. How many people are parents that can't recognize that there were ways in which they were less than skillful with their kids?
Well, or how often do I buy stuff I don't need on Amazon and then throw away a bunch of plastic, you know, and then think I'm a conscientious, good person? You know, it's like I'm raping, plundering myself. So I think what it comes down to, you know, is it means redefining the problem. You know, the problem is not evil people out there. The problem is that we all have blind spots. And if we're going to survive at all as a race, we need to be really step up our willingness to face our blind spots and to confess our blind spots with honesty. But pointing outraged fingers at other people deflects the attention away from the honesty that we need and the connection we can then make. You know, it's like, I'm guilty of this. You know, how many times in the last year have I seen some Trump supporter ranting on my timeline, and then what do? You kind of freeze them or something. You know, you make sure they can't, because I just don't want to hear something that's so different from what I believe, right? But of course, I'm part of the problem then. You know, I mean, I think I'm supporting good, but what I'm actually supporting is separation. You know.
Did you see that series Chernobyl?
No, not yet. No.
Wow, I found it was great series, but also addressing,
Yeah.
what we're talking about, where people in power, because of their blind spots,
Yeah.
can be responsible for millions of people dying.
Yeah.
Millions. And
Right.
it's like, okay,
Yeah.
it's like that, it's, when do you have the luxury to say to someone, look, I'd really like to get to know you and invite you to take a look at the
Yeah.
blind spots, you know,
or just have a
or,
drink, or just I
or
like to
just
get
have
to know you and just hang out, right?
yeah, you see, that's the trip. It's like, you think having a drink with Trump would fundamentally shake the roots of his belief systems? I don't know.
I think having a drink with Trump would probably fundamentally change my mind from. I think I would probably have more. I don't know, but
You see, that's so. Let's make a distinction here. That if dealing with what gets touched in ourselves.
Well, let me just hang on. Let me just say
also,
one thing.
but also the capacity to say stop.
Yeah.
Absolutely, this has to stop.
Yeah, right,
You cannot continue this.
Yeah.
I know there's good intentions, but look at what's happening out of it.
Well, Trump obviously, I mean, when I say obviously, to me, it's obvious. Trump has a kind of personality problem, right? He's clearly very much concerned with what people think of him, which, you could call that narcissism, and it probably has underlying insecurity. But if that was my uncle, I would probably view that with compassion and concern rather than hatred, you see? So let me give you a little parallel. Like, we've got a dog here. We've got a dog, right? Now, supposing there's a young child in the house, a 3-year-old child, and the 3-year-old child is eating a peanut butter sandwich and then offers the peanut butter sandwich to the dog, and the dog starts eating it, right? Peanut butter, as I understand it, will kill a dog. Dogs don't do well with peanut butter, right? But that's not an evil child.
No.
That's a misinformed child who needs to be corrected and educated. Now, hang on, let me just finish. Because if I see the dog laying there writhing in pain, whatever happens to dogs, and I don't know it was a 3-year-old child, I can start a conspiracy theory about somebody evil murdering the dog until I realize it was a 3-year-old child. Now, honestly, in many ways, Trump is a 3-year-old child, and
and if you saw that 3-year-old child, no doubt you would say stop.
Right.
And with luck, you would say stop without shaming them or blaming them.
Yeah.
So that they could learn.
Well, trust me, brother.
Because
on
when we
November
shame
12th, on November 12th, I'm going to be saying stop in big, bold letters on my voting form. I'm going to say stop as loudly as I can, no matter who else is on the ballot. I'm going to be saying stop. But it's just the othering, you see. It's the othering I'm trying to get to.
I agree.
So
we have to make that distinction to be able to say stop without othering, without shame and blame. And that starts in ourselves. If there's unconscious patterns playing in us, and we claim ownership of it, what comes with that always is shame and blame.
Right.
And that gets in the way of inquiry. I'm 100% on board with that.
Because, Trump will be gone. Probably in 10 years he'll be dead. I don't know. But Trump will be gone sooner or later, and we'll forget about him. It used to be Bush. Everybody was upset with Bush. And then there was Obama, and different people there's always somebody to be upset with. So the villain of the month changes, but the othering is a constant that we keep doing. And everybody does it in one way or the other. And it's ultimately, I would say, our doom as a race is going to be more the result of our othering than this or that particular bad person,
So to me, it seems like that othering is an automatic unconscious pattern.
It is,
that nobody really does, because as soon as it happens, there's suffering, and no one would consciously suffer.
Right.
So it's like, okay, so then the question is, who's doing it? But is there a way of exploring? How does that othering function? What are the building blocks for it? Is there a way to bring that mechanism that plays so automatically as soon as there's a discomfort, that allows maturing to happen, that we can start to be with that before it projects and before it goes, but still with the capacity to see clearly and to say stop.
Yeah.
So,
Well, I feel like, at least as far as I'm concerned,
mm,
that's what I feel I'm doing with you right now, is we're
Mm.
telling the truth to each other
Mm.
about what it's like to be trapped inside a monkey
Mm.
with all of its emotions and limitations and prejudices.
Yeah.
We're telling the truth to each other, and there's 6 people witnessing us doing this right now. World fame at last, you know, and so in us telling the truth about this, it feels to me that which is meeting in the truth telling is not prejudiced. You see, that which is meeting in the truth telling, in the willingness to tell the truth about the prejudice, we start to unpack that which is not prejudiced. Yeah. Yeah, man. Looks like you've got some company there. So thanks a lot, man, for hanging out. I really love you and appreciate you.
If you can make it on your Facebook page shareable, then I'll
It is
share it on
shareable
mine
right
too.
now. It's
Okay,
shareable right now.
fantastic.
Love you, bro. Talk to you
Big
soon.
love.
Yeah? Okay.
Yeah.
Hey.
Sorry.
Ciao.